Hello, hello, hello. Namo myoho renge kyo, namo myoho renge kyo, namo myoho renge kyo. How you doing today? Hope you're in good health and secure. First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for using this resource, all of this resource, not just the videos, but the free podcasts and all the free information on threefoldlotus.com and links to the bookstore and Gohun or the Mandala store, right? It's called Gohunzan, but it's Mandala. Anyway, patrons, you are truly Bodhisattva Mahasattvas in your keeping my feet to the fire to keep growing this resource and getting it out to more people. Patrons on Patreon or PayPal, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much. Though, if you're not doing that, please be one of the many who are liking and subscribing. It means a lot to the algorithms and gets this resource accessing more people, which is the goal. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank all of you. So now let's see what we can do about increasing our confidence in our practice, okay? We're going to finish up Chapter 8 of the MahaPariNirvana Sutra today. And I may begin the Chapter 9, but not in the same video because I think it's just a cleaner break if a new chapter is a new video. So let's see what we can dig up in the final pages of Chapter 8. Also, Shakyamuni continues, it is not to show attachment to what Shakyamuni Buddha says for reasons of expediency. This is arriving at the meaning. So again, we're still in that very strong discussion that it didn't begin with the Lotus Sutra, but the Lotus Sutra really nailed this down with respect to the final, the most developed, the teaching that Shakyamuni himself is transferring as the method by which he attained enlightenment. In other words, he's not speaking to students and cultural realities that are struggling with their capacity to understand anymore. He's just laying it out. This is what you need to do. And very likely it won't be until in future generations that this will be understood more directly, more easily. And, we have the benefit of Nichiren, who basically gave us what would you call it, no-fault kind of practice. He gave us the proper mandala to focus our minds on our Buddha nature, our ninth consciousness, and then repeated really what Shakyamuni's been saying all along, but certainly in the Lotus Sutra. Scholars who are not Lotus Sutra Buddhists tend to call it self-serving rhetoric in the Lotus Sutra. What they don't understand that it is the Lotus Sutra, which is the Myoho Renge Kyo, which is indicating, teaching, directing that it is Myoho Renge Kyo which needs to be practiced. That's not self-serving. That's the direction for the most direct invocation of our ninth consciousness, our Buddhahood, facilitated by walking out of our samsaric 8 consciousnesses and into that ninth consciousness, which is inherent in our sentient minds, to experience Buddhahood. But, scholars don't get that nuance, if you will, although it's pretty darn emphatic in the Lotus Sutra. Once again, he's having to resort to these people who didn't quite get it through the Threefold Lotus Sutra, that they have to freaking let go of the words, the stories, the similes, the parables, and understand the meaning of what's underneath those words. What is these are expedient means or expedient devices, right? Skillful means, whatever label you want to give them, they are stand-ins, because language is based on thignifying, yeah? So how do you take a language that's so based in samsara to describe something that is completely not samsara? That is inherent and fundamental beneath anything leading to samsara, right? The fundamental quiescent energy. How do you talk about that without talking about a thing? Well, you kind of have to play a trick with language, which is what language is. It's a way of talking about something other than thing. It's like I used to say in my artwork. It's I'm trying to talk about conveyance. That is, that I want the issue to be the conveyance, not about what is being conveyed. So I'm trying to talk about something where there is nothing to say or talk about. It's difficult, right? So this is how he's closing, because it's the most fundamental part of practicing correctly is not getting hung up on words and sentence structures. Now, you might say, well, Sylvain, you're a big hypocrite, because you keep telling us that the whole reason you run your channel is because there's cultural and author writing bias in all these translations, and it sullies the words of the translations, and therefore you miss the meaning. And yes, I stand by that, not because, though, I'm fetishizing the words, but because if you don't get the words at least close to what was communicated orally, then the meaning will elude you, because the meaning will be shifted according to the bias of the authors or the institution or the editors or the publishers or whoever gets their fingers in the pie. And so we're at a stage now of MAPO, right? Which is greed, anger, and stupidity. And that affects the translations too. So yeah, it is my concerted effort. The whole reason I started this resource is to pry open and obviate all of that bias, so you could take words like faith and prayer out of Buddhism, because it doesn't belong there at all. But what does belong, what was misinterpreted to come up with those words? Not faith, but a strong mind of confidence and determination. That's a very different thing. You may say, whoa, that's what I grew up with. But that's not what, quote, faith is, right? Faith doesn't require logic or reason or example. But to have a strong mind of conviction and determination, you really have to have an idea that you're latching onto. A real experiential idea, not some theoretical puff. Same thing with prayer. We're not pleading for anything. We're manifesting our Buddha nature, our innate Buddhahood, right? We're putting expression to an experience of our Tathagata-ness. So, it is not to show attachment to what Shakyamuni says for reasons of expediency. This is arriving at the meaning. If a person abides in this, we may say that this person abides in Paramartha Satya. ultimate reality. That is why we say that we base ourselves on the meaning of the sutras and not on the non-grasping of the meaning. Non-grasping of the meaning relates to what is stated in the sutras, saying that all can be snuffed out, all is non-eternal, all is suffering, all is transparency, and all is selfless. This is non-grasping of the meaning. How so? Because such a person is not able to grasp the intended meaning, only the appearance of or literal meaning. Right? So when we say non-self, to be literal about it is to annihilate or kill the self, as though the self were this vessel. But when you understand the meaning, it is the attitude and intent, attitude and intent, attitude and intent. I keep saying this over and over again because these words, attitude and intent, directs you to what Buddhism is really about, the mind. How do we experience, what is self? How is it constructed? It's not this, right? When you look in a mirror, do you see yourself? No, you see the vessel that provides a samsaric thingamabob that supports the emergent mind of experience. Is the mind an organ? No. There's a lot written about this, and I have videos on this channel you can look up on a mind. Where is the mind? Sounds like a song. Where is my mind? That is why we say that we base ourselves on the meaning of the sutras and not on the non-grasping meaning. If you grasp everything or non-grasp by assigning literal definitions to what you read instead of understanding that they're straw men, that they're examples leading you to insights, then this is the cause of all beings falling into Avicii hell. Why? Because of attachment, as a result of which a person does not grasp the meaning. And you've heard me before define Avicii hell as right here. In other words, samsara, truly. Now, I've never read anything where Shakyamuni has said this. This is me saying to you that the incessant suffering of the Avicii hell is another way of saying life is suffering, the first noble truth. Why is life suffering? Because samsara is the basis, the basic, the operating system of our physical reality. Fortunate or unfortunate, this is the setup of our tremendous determination to be. We are then manifest as human beings, raise a sentient mind, all based on identification. And so we identify this as me, 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 me. And that is something that is either belongs to me or doesn't belong to me. Everything is that identification, yeah? This is constant suffering. This is the Avicii hell. And even though you read Buddhism and you study it, if everything you see in it is literal to you, you have not moved beyond samsara. You're continuously in the Avicii hell, which I just read. Yeah. Why? Because of attachment. Why? Because of identification. A person might say that all gets extinguished, implying that the entrance of Shakyamuni Buddha into nirvana constitutes extinction. Extinction, though, of what? Extinction of Shakyamuni Buddha? Or extinction of samsara in the mind of Shakyamuni. Because after all, when we die, the apparatus, the vehicle, the vessel from which the mind emerges is done. It's no longer active. It's extinguished, and therefore the mind with it. So it's not an issue. It's a non-issue, if you want to identify it. A person might say that all is non-eternal, meaning that even nirvana is non-eternal, and that the same is true with suffering, transparency, and non-self too. That is why we say that such is non-grasping of the import of the sutras. One cannot depend on such, O good man. There might be a person who says that Shakyamuni Buddha have compassion, or that any Buddha has compassion for emancipating all beings. Looks to what is apt for the occasion, right? How do you help somebody? You have to start from where they're at. As he knows that what is right for the occasion, he speaks of what is light as heavy and what is heavy as light. Shakyamuni Buddha knows that all his disciples are supplied with whatever they need by Dhanapatis. So Shakyamuni Buddha does not allow such persons to receive or keep menials, or male or female, gold, silver, gems, or to trade in impure things. Right? Some of the first rules, quote unquote, that Shakyamuni gave his followers was that they got to let go of material things, even people. When the disciples are not thus supplied in Dhanapatis, as when there is a famine and food is scarce, he allows them, for the purpose of establishing and protecting wonderful Dharma, to receive menials, male or female, gold, silver, vehicles, fields, houses, and rice, and to trade in what they have. Many discussions between Nichiren and Shijokingo, for example, and others discuss the holdings, the fields, the lands, the fiefs, right? The people that work for Shijokingo, on and on. Many discussions between Nichiren and them. And they navigate those discussions Nichiren had, not only the appropriate Buddhist teachings of Shakyamuni, but the negotiation of the situation that directly concerns Shijokingo's earthly being, his position, his politic, his family, alongside his dedication of Buddhist practice. So with Nichiren, we have somebody who really guides us in how to negotiate our daily lives in and out of the family life or the household, right? As monks, we remove ourselves from household and focus all our efforts on enlightenment. But not all of us monks are able to do so. Many of us are already in families by the time we discover Nichiren's doctrines and Buddhism altogether. And so we can't just drop everything and go. I mean, if your wife or husband is gainfully employed and can run the house and take care of the house and so on and so forth, you can, to a greater degree, remove yourself from a lot of responsibilities. But you can't just do it at a whim. If you have those responsibilities to begin with, you need to either negotiate a way to remain in them responsibly while developing your Buddhist practice. Of course, the easiest thing is going to be to bring your mate, your partners along with you, and then your children will fall in line, and then the whole household becomes kind of a mini sangha, yeah? But, everybody has their different situations, different politic. But that's a very samsaric thing, so it's a very difficult practice. Only dogged determination will make that a nurturing situation. All right, took off on a tangent there. Although one is allowed to receive and keep such things, these must be given by resolved in practice dhanapatis. Then all such four things are what can be depended upon. If the precepts, Abhidharma and Sutras do not differ from these four, one may depend upon these. If a person says that there are times and non-times, Dharma to be protected and Dharma not to be protected, and that Shakyamuni Buddha allows all bhikshus to receive and keep such impure things, such should not be depended upon. If the precepts, Abhidharma and Sutra agree with these, such three cannot be depended upon. I speak about these four things for the sake of all beings and with the fleshy eye, but it is not for those who have the eye of wisdom. That is why I speak about these four things and say that they are the things to be depended upon. Dharma is dharmata, meaning is saying that the Tathagata field is eternal and unchanging. Wisdom is knowing that all beings have Buddha nature, Buddhata. Grasping the meaning means being well versed in all the Mahayana Sutras. And I close with a note here. It is useful to consider that all statements using the term eternal or outside of time are statements regarding the timelessness of momentum, the constant and fleeting now of moment-to-moment cycling of the engine of life. Quiescence to pressure, formations to realms of namarupa or name and form. All potential, including, of course, Tathagata field, is without time because it is without namarupa or name and form, realms. Time is a construct of samsara and belongs to the experience of the physical universe, of name and form. Therefore, Tathagata field and all potential can only be experienced in the realms of name and form, requiring first that formations amalgamate tendencies and conditions into form. What we're trying to experience is outside of name and form. This is why language presents a unique challenge to derive meaning, yeah? And we invoke it every time we chant the Daimoku, because we are using the tone, sound, vibration of name and form, Myoho Renge Kyo, to penetrate that meaning, Buddha-ness, Buddhahood, the experience of the moment-to-moment wonder of the engine of life, yes? Chapter 9, on wrong and right. Well, that should be somewhat controversial. We'll see if we light up the comments section with opinions on that. Again, I'm leaving that for the next video. The eighth chapter was pretty focused on repeating, really, the major lesson of the first half of the Lotus Sutra. Let go of the things like the fabled, the apparition of the city, right? What is it called in the Lotus Sutra? Darn it. The jeweled city? No. That's the I mixed up the titles. Anyway, it's that mythical city that Shakyamuni provided his followers because they were starting to struggle so much. He was worried that they would fall into doubts and stop working themselves toward the goal, enlightenment. He didn't want them to quit or walk away. He wanted them to stay the course. So he gave them a respite, right? What's often called the semblance or counterfeit dharma or teaching is we'll give you the goal of simply extinguishing samsaric attachment, and we'll call that enlightenment for now, hoping that his monks, his students, would catch up to his lessons and teachings so that they on their own would realize, but this isn't full enlightenment. We're not there yet. But they didn't. They were very satisfied with that provisional goal. And so in the Lotus Sutra, he spends several chapters in the first half of the Lotus Sutra, or first third, if you will, really knocking the down and feathers in the brains of those monks, getting them to realize, no, you've stalled yourself. But now you should be strong enough to realize that we can go the remaining distance and get you to real, complete Anuttara Samyak Sambhavai. Yeah? Anyway, if you don't remember that, please look at my translation of the Lotus Sutra. You can watch them in video on this channel, or you can get the book online. Still a few typos and things in there. I haven't gone back to fix those yet. They're pretty cleaned up, though. I think they'll work just fine. But I've been focusing on this MahaPariNirvana, which has been, I have to admit, quite a slog. The only translation I could find that seemed to be complete enough was also so full of just hogwash, biased rhetoric. Just the writer and author is not a Lotus Sutra Buddhist. Anyway. But I think that when I'm finally done, and once I get all my typos and things out of it, that we'll be able to be proud of this effort. This will be in 2 volumes so far, and we're only on chapter 9 now, so it's going to take a little while, but we'll get there. I'm determined. In the meantime, please take care of your health, savor your practice, enjoy it, right? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I will see you in the next one. We'll have more fun then. Bye-bye for now.